Hello, I'm Sarah Muirhead with Feedstuffs, and welcome to this Feedstuffs Fast Chat. Today we're talking to Omar Mendoza, Director of Nutrition at the Mash-Offs, and Dr. Bob Goodban, Professor at Kansas State University. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So let's jump in here today and get started. Dr. Goodban, provide us with an overview of the collective research study conducted at Kansas State, University of Missouri, and the Mash-Offs, in which a diet of soybean meal with and without the inclusion of DDGs was researched. Give us some highlights there.
Well, first of all, I do need to acknowledge people like Omar and Caleb Scholl at the Mash-Offs, Amy Petrie and her group at University of Missouri, and actually Aaron Gaines and Dean Boyd. They deserve a lot of the credit in terms of initiating the project, and naturally USB for the support of it. But what we did was an experiment where we looked at increasing levels of soybean meal in the diet, either in a corn soy diet or a corn soy diet with dried distillers grains. And we did an early grower study from about 75 to 150 pounds, and then turned around and did the same study from about 200 pounds onto market. And some of the results, some of the key highlights of the results, as we increased soybean meal in the diet, we generally saw improvements in feed efficiency, which is a good thing, leading to some economical benefits. And particularly in the late finishing study, increasing soybean meal increased average daily gain, again, maybe to a greater magnitude in the corn soy diets than in the distillers grains based diets.
So how does this research compare to previous research that you've conducted?
Yeah, we've been doing a lot of soybean quality research lately, and consistent with some of the results that we observed in this study, we've seen improvements in feed efficiency throughout several of our more recent studies. And so that was a pretty consistent response that we saw, and maybe not so much as what we expected, but it continued and moved on, and we saw very similar responses.
What about next steps? Is there some additional research that you're considering or you're already digging into?
Yeah, that's a good question. Some of the responses we think may be due to the digestible lysine to crude protein ratio. That is the ratio of the individual amino acids in relationship to crude protein of the diet. And we're involved in research now looking at what that ideal ratio is, and think it may play into explaining some of the results we saw in the current study.
So, Dr. Mendoza, you're a commercial nutritionist, so you're right in the barn there taking a look at all of this. Why is this research important to commercial nutritionists like yourself?
Yes, and first of all, I'd like to echo Dr. Goodban's comments that, this research is a product of collaboration between academia and industry. And I'm a firm believer that, that is a really good path forward, because then we can implement some of the ideas generated within academia and then put it within the context of commercial production. But back to the research, or why this is important. So as nutritionists, we always drive to reduce feed costs, and then in the last 2 decades, with the growth of the ethanol market, the production of DDGS, and then synthetic amino acids, we've used those as tools to reduce that cost. However, we are finding that there are limits as to how much amino acids we can put in the diet and DDGS at the expense of soybean meal. So now we're taking a look at, is this the right approach? Is there components of the diet, components of the pigs, and the stage of growth where we got to be cognizant that there may be differences to achieve an economic optimum? So really this research was looking at the 2 different diet programs, corn soy based diets with DDGS, and different levels of soy and synthetic amino acids to find those thresholds. We're finding that there are limits as to the amount of soybean meal that we can replace. So the researchable questions were aimed to answer these questions.
Sounds like there's some new findings then from the previous research that you've conducted. Anything really stand out in that regard?
Well, from our experience, we looked at this before, but all on the basis of a commercial program with DDGS. I think what this study brought to light is that there are differences. In this case, as Dr. Goodman talked about, either in the grower phase or the finishing phase, that there's a diet program effect. We did see that pigs that were fed DDGS had lower gains. So that's interesting in and of itself. There's implications to us as nutritionists to utilize that knowledge and then apply economics at the end of the day. There's times of the year where we can apply these and times of the year that we may shift to the other program. But certainly, this just continues to add to the body of literature and the body of knowledge that there are limits, and we're still trying to find out what those optimum levels are and find that point of balance between synthetic amino acids, products like DDGS, and then soybean meal levels.
How do you plan to apply this new research within the MASH-off system?
Yes, great question. And I think this is system dependent. So as nutritionists, we got to understand a few things within our systems. One specifically that we look at this within our program is the factor of how do we remove pigs at marketing. So most of the year, a system like ours is going to be removing pigs on the basis of a fixed weight. But there will be times of the year, for example, summer, where we turn more to a fixed time removal program, and then where we got to value gain differently. So in this case, looking at the results, the diet programs with soybean meal and not DDGS had a better growth rate and feed efficiency. So certainly looking at the economics, at the relationships of soy to corn, the relationships of DDGS to corn price, and then frame it up within that. But certainly each nutritionist or each system's got to be looking at those factors specifically to see where they play in and then play out.
Good point. Now, final question for both of you. I'm going to go to you first, Bob. What additional advice would you give to other nutritionists in terms of feeding soybean meal and DDGSs in a grow-finish diet? What would be your words of wisdom there?
Yeah, I think Omar hit things right on the head that it is system dependent and season dependent in relationship to summertime marketings versus when we're a little bit less pressed for space in the winter. But again, yeah, I agree. It is definitely specific to individuals' marketing programs and nutrition programs. And I think the second thing is the concept of balance, that, not to get too wild in regards to feed grade amino acids or DDGs, or looking for good balanced nutrition programs, I think, are the key.
Omar, what would be your words of wisdom for other nutritionists?
Yes, I would echo some of the same comments. So I think we got to be really careful when formulating our diets. We were trained as nutritionists that as long as we meet the essential amino acid needs of the pigs, those nutrients on paper, that we're going to get a performance. Well, that is true, and that would have been true before, but the changes from when we learn how to formulate diets and meet those essential nutrients to now, the differences are now that we have synthetic amino acids. When those synthetic amino acids come into the diet, then they're replacing soy. And now the pigs are telling us that there's something missing. So Dr. Goodman spoke at the beginning that some of the next steps on this is to look at the right relationships of amino acids to crude protein. And I think that still needs to continue to be elucidated. So just having a diet program on paper that makes sense or there's economical doesn't mean that we're going to get a performance. So we got to be using information like this and other research that has been done in the same area to really frame it up, because the pigs are telling us that that may not be the case. That even though the formulation tells us we're okay, it's a diet that it's cheaper, we may not get that performance. We got to be careful.
Great point and great learnings here today. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for. I want to thank you both, Omar and Bob. Thank you for being part of this Feedstuffs Fast Chat.
Great. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.